Let's go ahead and get started for the Quad A meeting for May 24th, if I could please. Uh, as we get started, I'd like to welcome any new pilot ratings that we've got. We don't have any tonight, new pilots. We don't have anybody with a new balloon, but I know there are a bunch of balloons that are on their way. Yeah, we're trying. Several of us are trying. Okay, any other ballooning in the community activities? I don't think so. But we do have some visitors, and our visitors this evening are also our program for the evening. So let me see. I've got Jeremy Brumley. Jeremy, where are you? There he is over there. I've got Troy Steinbert in the back. I've got Vikela Steinbert also. There he is. I got Stephen Bond, who is here. And Mario Seifert also is here with us. And they are going to be speaking with us tonight about the letter of agreement and about the ABSD process that we've got. So, Stephen, if you want to come up, I think we're ready for you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Blair. Good evening. I am Stephen Bond. I'm the acting air traffic manager at Albuquerque Tower. With me today, as Blair has already indicated, Jeremy Brumley. He's one of our operations supervisors. I've got Troy Stimbert, one of our senior air traffic controllers, and Mario Seifert. Mario is in charge of running the LOA repository that we have for the balloons. We want to thank you for inviting us to your meeting. One of our goals is to build an aviation community and increase that communication. So hopefully this isn't the last time we're here. We hope to do this on a yearly event. Albuquerque ATC understands the importance of hot air ballooning to the city of Albuquerque and to the state of New Mexico. We understand it's got a unique cultural identity for the state. Tonight we're briefly going to discuss the 7711 waiver, the ballooning LOA, but primarily we're just going to discuss the ATC operations. So with the LOA, there is a national work group being convened. In fact, it's going to kick off tomorrow, of which Quad A is a participating member of that work group. We hope for good things to come from that. But with that, we may or may not be able to answer all of your questions. If it's concerned primarily with the operations, absolutely we can do that. But things of a political nature or regulatory nature, we may or may not be able to answer at this time. We will take those questions on an IOU and get back to you if we can. So air traffic, we are a service provider. Our job is to prevent a collision of aircraft operating within the air. Class Bravo and Charlie Airspace obviously is designed for terminal facilities to organize arrival and departure of IFR aircraft and VFR aircraft as such. And we try to provide access to anyone who wants access to our airspace. Obviously, with CFR 91-225 coming out and being effective January 1st, 2020, that kind of threw a hiccup into hot air ballooning operations. We at Albuquerque Center immediately jumped into, and this was all behind the scenes, we jumped into trying to craft a proposal to get hot air balloonists back up in the sky because we know how important it is to New Mexico. If you'll advance to the next slide, or do I have a button up here or something? Oh, you did? Perfect, thank you. So there's been a little bit of confusion. We have two documents that kind of govern Quad A operations within the airspace, right? One is the 7711 waiver, and one is the newly crafted letter of agreement. I just wanted to discuss briefly the differences between the two documents because there is a little bit of confusion and there are a little bit of differences in the coordination. The 7711 waiver is actually a waiver that's signed by FSDO, not by air traffic. It contains portions of CFRs that we are not able to waiver as air traffic, but FSDO can because they are the education, equipage, and enforcement arm of the FAA. The 7711 waiver, if you read it, is for operations that are outside of Albuquerque Class C airspace from altitude surface to 10,000 feet. So we're talking about outside of the Class Charlie airspace. The LOA is what allows for deviations for operations to occur within Class Charlie airspace. Here's a specific example, and this is verbiage taken directly from the 7711 waiver. Right, you can see that the waiver is for specific dates and times for those operations. The LOA allows for deviations to CFR 91-215, which is transponder use, 225 ADSB out use, and communications requirements. This is for daily operations, right? So we're not specific to a particular set of dates like a weekend or something, it's for daily operations. Let's talk about the differences in notifications and why there are differences. So in the 7711 waiver, it says the event director shall notify the Albuquerque TRACON at 856-4935 30 minutes prior to the launch. In the LOA, it says notification only if 10 balloons are greater 1 hour prior at 4948. Why are there two differences? Well, number one, the waiver was already signed by FSDO. Right? And we didn't want to change anything to generate even more confusion. It's already published, and with things in the government, sometimes things can take a while to get changed. The LOA is it within the spirit of 91, 215, and 225. If you read those portions of the CFR, it says air traffic can approve a deviation with a 1 hour notification. So that's the reason for the differences. Both of these telephone numbers will ring the same operations soup desk. 4948 is a recorded line. We're trying to move everything that requires coordination to a recorded line. But again, 4935 was already published. We didn't want to change it. That's the reason for those two differences. Balloon Fiesta. Balloon Fiesta is a whole different animal. It's its own event that gets its own waivers. The LOA does not impact the Balloon Fiesta. The 7711 waiver, as it says today, does not impact it. The Balloon Fiesta gets its own separate waivers. Balloon Fiesta has never been in danger of being canceled or anything like that. Okay, so let's talk about the LOA for a second. And I'm not going to go into detail about the LOA. I'm just going to give a brief overview to kind of clarify some things. 91.215 is a transponder and altitude reporting equipment use. 91.225 is ADSB out, which has caused the recent kind of hubbub lately, right? 91.130 is operations in Class Charlie airspace, communications requirements, that is. And then we have 91.130D, which is equipage requirements. Those are what the LOA addresses. If you're going to enter into an LOA, which Quad A has, you all fall under that umbrella, provided you provide an attestation that you understand and have read and have understand the contents of the letter of agreement. So you all fall under Quad A's LOA. But for those individuals that want to strike out on their own, you can apply for an LOA. What we need, operator's name and airman certificate number, the balloon's registration number, and we have an email address here. Mario, who we pointed out earlier, is our quarterback for LOA. We've had one or two hiccups, but for the most part, we're getting quick turnaround on those LOAs. So in the LOA, if you're a signatory party, you do not need to notify us 1 hour prior unless you're operating as a group of 10 or more. Now, let's say you show up individually and 9 other people show up individually to one spot. Do you have to call us? No. If your intent is to operate as a group of 10 or more, then yes. Why 10? Kind of an arbitrary number, but that's where we start to see returns on our radar scope, but we don't see aircraft return per se. We see precipitation return, and you'll see that as we go through these slides. So let's talk about real-time waiver requests. So let's just suppose that you were not a signatory party. What we will not do or not approve is a real-time request to waive 91-215, 225, 9130, right? For example, if you were airborne, you weren't a signatory party, you're going into Class Charlie airspace, you call us up on frequency to try to get access, our controllers will tell you unable. Why is that? Well, again, our job is to prevent a collision of aircraft. And what we do is a lot of risk management, right? We have usual arrival and departure routes. We have usual pattern work. We have usual aircraft operations that our controllers understand, which Troy will probably explain to you later on. When we introduce something that's unknown last minute, we don't have the ability to conduct any risk management. Now, the exception to this rule, well, it's not on there, is if it's an urgent distress or emergency condition. Obviously, we are there to provide a service to you guys. If you were to enter as a non-signatory party, which if you're under the umbrella of Quad A, you are, but if you were not, you would need to state, hey, I'm in an emergency situation, or I'm in a situation that prevents me from remaining clear of Class Charlie airspace. We're going to handle you to the best of our ability. We will ask you to expedite clear of Class Charlie airspace. We will ask you for your call sign, your altitude, your heading, essentially, right? We want to gather that information so that we know how to handle you, right? Communication is going to be a recurring theme in this presentation. If you ever get into trouble, communicate with us, talk to us, let us know what's going on. Just an overview of the Class Charlie airspace. You can see we have, think upside down wedding cake. We have a surface area 5 miles out from the airport, surface to 9,400 MSL, that's mean sea level. Our second tier, 6,900 to 9,400 MSL. Out to the east, 7,800 to 9,400 MSL. That's Double Eagle's Class Delta airspace over there. So there's been a little bit of confusion about the LOA as far as monitoring requirements and communication requirements. So let's talk about that for a second. So we want monitoring whenever you're within Class Charlie airspace. Why is that? To raise your situational awareness. We can't talk enough about situational awareness, right? We want you guys to know what's going on while you're flying, because it will aid us. It will aid in the separation of aircraft. Within 5 miles of the airport, we want two-way radio communication. We want you guys to tell us, hey, I'm out here, right? That will help us to avoid you, right? Because now we're talking about right-of-way rules. We know that hot air balloons are less maneuverable than jets or prop aircraft. Anytime that there is a distress, emergency, or non-compliance issue, give us a call. Let us know what's going on with you. We can help. So when we built our LOA, we tried to use visual reference points. We picked the Big I, or the intersection of Interstate 40 and Interstate 25, as kind of a hitch point, let's say. If you're north of Interstate 40 and west of Interstate 25, there's no radio monitoring required. We feel like in that particular area, we don't need to talk to you, right? We don't have a whole lot of traffic up in that vicinity. For the rest of these three quadrants, we do. 120.3, that's our tower local frequency. We want you talking to the tower, right? The tower is the one that can see you, and we'll talk about the radar room here in a bit. So within 5 miles, we want you talking to the tower, 120.3. And we'll go into detail about the altitudes of the LOA, et cetera, et cetera. So if we look, we tried to keep everything basic. I didn't want to chop up our Class Charlie airspace into 16 different altitudes because that's hard for you guys to remember, and it's hard for my controllers to remember, right? So if we look, overhead the airport, no deviation. We don't want hot air balloons flying there. Now, Balloon Fiesta, we know you guys are going to drift that way. We're prepared for events like that, right? But we're talking about a daily basis, not overhead. That extends from Central to the Tijeras Arroyo down to the south. Let's talk about this cutout just to the west here. So if we look at that, we understood the feedback we got from some members of the ballooning community is we like to float over downtown and do a little splash and dash, and sometimes we like to land in here, right? So we tried to make that accommodation. So if we look here, this is Bridge Street or Avenida Dolores Huerta, and this is Rio Bravo, right? The Rio Grande is right here. So we made an exception for this area, at or below 6,000. Why don't we want people here? Because that is a critical phase of flight for our runway 8 departures. I'm sorry, our runway 8 arrivals and our runway 26 departures, right? We have a lot of aircraft within this area in a final phase or an initial phase of flight. As we move out, we have these yellow areas, 8,500 and below, right? So if we think about elevation in that area, Rio's right around 55,000 feet MSL, 5,100 MSL. That's about 3,000 plus altitude for you in this area. Same thing down here. Why are these not color-coded yellow? Well, that's because of the airport, right? If you're in this area operating and you're drifting south, we do want you to climb up over Central because we want you higher to cross the airport southbound. That's the reason why they're not color-coded yellow. We don't see a whole lot of balloon operations over here, but we were tasked with every single chunk of our airspace. So that's what we did. And we said in this area, 8,500 and below. Why? Because now we're talking about our runway 26 arrivals, right? And that's what we want to avoid there. This area up to the northeast, and we're going all the way out to Paseo del Norte there, 8,500 below. We have a lot of arrivals and departures. If you think about the United States, most of the United States is to the north and east of us. Most of our arrivals come in from that direction, 8,500 and below, right? The rest of it, unrestricted. And that was kind of the, I don't know what I want to say here, the happy medium of trying to get you all back up into the air with a 91.225 and 215 deviation. So I kind of went into this already. Rio at or below 6, no deviation to the east of the Rio. And you're probably asking to yourself, well, what if I'm floating that way? Again, communication. Let the tower know what's going on. I can't stress that enough. If you get into a situation where you can't comply with the LOA, communicate with us. We're not out to drop the hammer on anybody. We're out to keep the air traffic control system safe. Kirtland Air Force Base, I'll just touch on this real quick. And I was trying to get it removed out of the LOA, but Kirtland wanted a piece. So, in the event you're flying south over Kirtland, try to avoid landing on Kirtland Air Force Base property. You know, they've got a lot going on at Kirtland. I'm not going to get into that. If Kirtland's the only alternative, land as soon as it's safe, remain with your balloon. Security's going to come pay you a visit. Stay with them. They will escort you off. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. There are provisions in that from previous balloon fiestas. Radar presentations, and we'll touch on this a couple times. The balloons don't provide enough of a profile to provide a radar return, right? So you can see, this is a picture. I took this upstairs in the tower and then I ran downstairs and took it on the radar. We don't see you on radar, right? The only way we see you is in the tower, visually, right? Let's go to the next slide. This is from the balloon fiesta. You can see we probably have 100 balloons or so. That shows up on our radar as a precipitation return, okay? That shows up as weather, right? We can't separate from weather, right? So if you can kind of look here, here's PD5. You can see an aircraft radar return right there. That's kind of the difference. This is you all, a big clump of weather return. We can't specifically say, oh, we're 5 miles or 3 miles from this aircraft, right? Okay, so that concludes my portion. I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy and Troy. They're going to go over more of the operations side of the house and give you a perspective on what we do on a daily basis. Sir. This one?
What's the difference between those two spaces?
So we tried to craft our LOA based upon familiar documents. So we went back to a previous Quad A letter of agreement that we had with Albuquerque Tower. And basically it said, if you're unable to land prior to Central Street, we want you to climb up to cross over the head of the airport.
I thought we had to contact ATC in both of those areas if within 5 miles.
Correct.
So I don't understand the distinction.
The color distinction is merely just to indicate that if you're in this area and you're not able to land prior to Central, we want you to start climbing back up to cross overhead the airfield. Yes.
Now in the yellow, within 5 miles, but north of I-40, don't I have the same requirement?
You do. So within,
That's what I was trying to understand.
except what? Correct. You don't have to climb there.
Communication.
Yeah. Anytime you're within 5 miles. Correct. But we do have a deviation from that.
Any single pilot flying into Class C airspace must establish that two-way communication.
Correct. But if we have that deviation built in, that if you're outside of the 5 miles in those areas we talked about, we don't need you to establish two-way radio communication.
But inside the ring.
Correct. Clear as mud? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy and Troy. We'll take a couple questions at the end.
But if you're between 8,500 and 9,000,
Okay. Where are you at? Are you inside or outside of 5 miles? No. That's what that deviation was for. So let me go back there real quick, because let's get this clear. Right? Surface area. So we're talking from the airport out to 5 miles. We want to talk to you. Two-way communication is required. Okay? Outside of 5 miles, monitoring. You don't need to monitor or call. All the way up. Okay? Outside of 5 miles.
Does this thing work? Roger. Hi, my name is Jeremy Brumley, controller at Albuquerque Center for about 12 years, and I transferred over to the tower about 3 years ago as an operations supervisor. So during the first balloon fiesta I worked, I was actually in training in the radar room, and the tower calls me, and they're like, "Hey, giant beaver just landed on the field." I was like, "Okay," and my instructor looks at me. He's like, "I dare you," and I was like, "Okay." So I broadcast on frequency, "Attention all aircraft, giant beaver just landed at Albuquerque, use caution." And next thing is News 4, request to go to Albuquerque Airport. Channel 7, we want to go to the airport as well. So Troy's been here about 13 years or so? 14 years? So Troy and I are the operations side. We're both fixed-wing pilots as well. We're definitely want to engage the community, and I can tell you that we love balloons. All the controllers love the balloons, so we're a part of Albuquerque Aviation as well. So let's talk a little bit about the actual operation and the movement of airplanes, which is what really dictates the reason that we structured the map in the way we did. So the following is based on personal experience, education, and opinion. It should not be considered a final say, law, rule on the position, or of the FAA or NATCA, which is the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. So please consult regulations, SOPs, maps, and charts, and FSDO for clarification. We're going to talk about airspace at Albuquerque, Double Eagle, our responsibilities, perspective, hot spots and trouble areas, and then we'll summarize real quick. So we have one air traffic manager, and that's Steve Bond. He was the gentleman speaking. Operations supervisor, that's me. There's 2 others. And we have 25 controllers. Troy is one of. We have 9 trainees, 2 staff specialists, one of which we have here. We have a tremendous amount of veterans in our workforce. The majority of our workforce is actually veterans. We have tech ops on staff. We hire retired controllers to come back and train our new controllers. And then we have one human resources. So this is the Albuquerque airspace. We control everything within about 35 miles of Albuquerque. So that's every airport, Belen, Los Lunas, Double Eagle. There's several dirt runways and multiple helipads. And we own up to flight level 200. Our standard gates, our arrival gates, this thing doesn't have a little.
It does. It's got
Oh, it doesn't show up on the screen though. So,
Steve was using it.
but it shows up here, but not on the.
I'll point and you talk.
Don't worry about it. I'll use my finger. My finger works. So the red depicts our arrival gates, and where there's not an arrival gate is essentially a departure gate. We already went over the Class Charlie map, and the map is structured for the arrival and the descent of the aircraft. If you ever wonder why it's an upside-down wedding cake, it's because aircraft, as they approach the airport, are obviously either climbing or descending. So the closer we get to the airport, the more congested it is, and that's why they built it that way. So Class C, Class Charlie services, as far as the biggest airports in the country are all Class Bravo. They have specific requirements. Class Charlie is considered a busy airport, but not as busy as a place like LA or Boston or New York. So our major responsibilities are the sequencing of all aircraft in and out of the primary airport. That is for IFR and VFR aircraft. We provide IFR services. We provide separation services, traffic advisories, safety alerts between IFR and VFR aircraft. And that's what you can expect from us. If you've established two-way communication and we see a situation that requires your attention, we are going to bring it to your attention. If you see something, you need to let us know as well. Like Steve said, we have no desire to report anybody or do anything. That's not what we are. Our job is to separate aircraft within the system. That is really our only concern. So we do issue traffic advisories and safety alerts. Class C service will be provided to all participating aircraft in the outer area. Aircraft should not normally be held, but if necessary, a pilot should be informed of an expected length of delay. If outage occurs, ATC will advise aircraft that Class Charlie services are not available. So two-way radio communication is required before entering Class Charlie airspace. Separation is visual separation. Visual separation was a pilot says, hey, I see that other airplane, and I agree I won't hit him. Fairly simple, right? In the absence of visual separation, we will apply 500-foot vertical separation between VFR, which is obviously balloons, or VFR fixed wings or rotors, and IFR aircraft, or target resolution, which is essentially I'm not going to let your dot touch another dot. Altitude assignment, when necessary, we can assign altitudes and headings to VFR aircraft. We understand balloons aren't really capable of that. So, you know, the ideal situation is we know where the balloon is and we send the airplane around it, right? There's other considerations for us, mainly wake turbulence could be, I don't know how wake turbulence affects a balloon, but I imagine it could be fairly severe, right? The closer, absolutely. So we know what it does to other aircraft. I mean, it can flip a small plane. So lighter than air aircraft, I'm sure. We just need to keep, particularly the wide-body jets, far enough away from you guys so where it's not even an issue. So exceptions to this, VFR aircraft need not be separated from IFR helicopters. Helicopters are see and avoid, or just see and miss, I guess. Traffic information safety alerts will be issued as appropriate. Hot air balloons do not need to be separated from IFR aircraft per se, right? I don't have a specific 3 miles or 500 feet. But if I know where you are, then I'm going to vector you probably 2 to 3 miles around you and at least 1,000 feet above you. I can't imagine a situation where we're trying to go underneath a balloon. So I would really... yeah, that's a good explanation. So traffic information and safety alerts must be issued as appropriate. That is one of our main duty priorities. So we do terminate service when aircraft have landed or when termination is requested by an aircraft, but not within Class Charlie. You cannot terminate services as an aircraft within Class Charlie. We have to provide those services because it's not just for you, it's for the other pilot as well. So services are provided until the aircraft departs our associate area. So typically speaking, when an aircraft departs, we keep them in some sort of radar and radio contact until they're about 20 miles away from the airport, and then they're off on their own, or they're talking to Albuquerque Center or something like that. So,
So just to touch on what Jeremy said, right? If you don't let this muddy the water, if you've determined it's appropriate to talk to us, you can't then go back and say, well, I want to reenact the deviation and I don't want to talk to you anymore. Let us know that you're ready to go somewhere else on your own, and we'll let you know when it's appropriate to change frequencies, right? Just like Jeremy said, this is for the protection of not only you, but everybody else. So that's a important piece, right? If you choose to talk to us, which we love, we want to know where you are. That way we can keep people away, especially in the radar room. We're going to go into some slides that show you there's not a window in the radar room. And you already saw what you look like on the radar, which is nothing, right, unless you're in a giant group. So if you call us, let us know where you are, then we can move planes around. That's really easy for us. So just to touch on that, highlight that. This is us. Double Eagle's out here, right? We already looked at this slide, so you can go ahead and go. Okay, here's a side portion. This is pretty good, right? So Rio Rancho and the associated area, right? And this is Double Eagle here. This is kind of a side view of Albuquerque looking from west back to east. Does that make sense to everybody? That picture should be in your mind from flying here a bunch. So there's above again, so you can go through that one. All right, so we'll talk about like what do we do? For us, real quick, Albuquerque Tower is 24/7. You guys aren't flying at night, but in case you're flying something else, we're there all the time.
do you ever fly at night? Is it legal?
Fly your balloons at night.
Gas it.
Only gas.
Okay.
Okay.
Just curious.
Yeah, we don't know. Okay. So we're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if you need us. We work 8-hour shifts. We work in both upstairs and down. Once you're fully certified at this facility here, you work both in the tower and in the radar room. We're doing lots of training all the time. Sometimes we don't have a supervisor, but we have someone acting as a supervisor. So if you call us and someone that's not a supervisor answers and you ask us a supervisor answerable question, we might tell you, hey, call back tomorrow, or give me your phone number. I'll have them call you when they come back, something like that. So you're not getting shined on. It just may be a question that is not appropriate for controllers to answer. We probably want you to talk to Soup.
And sometimes they let soups work traffic.
Yeah, sometimes. Listen up, though, if you hear Jeremy's voice. Time to put her down. Let's go on back. So we work reverse circadian, so it's terrible for the body, but it's great for your time off. So we start in the afternoon, and we get progressively earlier as we go through our week. The 5th day there is either an overnight shift or another morning shift. So this 4th and 5th day are combined in the same 24 hours if you work overnight. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's great for time off. It's really bad for your body. Doc will tell you. It's terrible for you. So we have local control. That's the tower, right? That's the person who controls the runways. We have ground control, controls all the taxiways and associated airport roads, talks to the firefighters, talks to the airport operations vehicles when they're not on the runway, stuff like that. Clearance, delivery, and flight data, that's where you get all of your pre-departure stuff, clearance, beacon code, any additional frequencies or help you need in flight planning. CIC is just a controller that is acting as a supervisor in that particular time. So it's in the radar room, we have south radar, 123.9er. That's probably the frequency you're going to use in the past. You're going to continue to use that one. Rarely are we split. North is 27.4. Low north is 24.4. Rarely is it open. Although as we get trainees running through the program, you'll hear it open more. So low north is basically right around Double Eagle. From the Nell G intersection, if you know where that is, or the VFR reporting point would be the smokestacks at Algodones, north of Algodones. They'll work kind of from there in towards Double Eagle, maybe 4 or 5 miles south to the VOR, and then all the way west. So just low level, 8,500 and below. We never open finals, although you might hear someone operating on that frequency if we're doing ASRs, like for the military or civilian aircraft that want to practice an ASR, airport surveillance radar. If you know what that is. If you're a fixed wing or a helicopter, you know what that is. Talked about controllers in charge. If we are doing on-the-job training in between the time we're working and the break time and then back to working again, we'll do those debrief sessions. Then other things we got to accomplish, we'll do the daily briefings. Like we'll go back to the workforce after this. We'll gather what questions, what information we can glean from you guys. We'll take that back to the workforce at some point and lay it out to them. So we do daily briefings like that. We'll keep updates like on the LOA when it changed. We'll talk about special event discussions. For you guys, that's Balloon Fiesta. We do a lot of briefing before that happens to the workforce. Then we have other associate stuff. Jeremy and I today were at Albuquerque Center doing skills training, like our biannual CE. Like if you're a professional, it's just CE for us. We do it twice a year. IST for that. So there's all kinds of work groups, other stuff going on. Looks like you want to jump in. What do you got?
Oh, so no, this is just a picture of our actual
Yes.
radar rim. So we love working in the dark.
Yeah.
Mostly because you don't get to see how dirty the floor is, but
Yeah. You don't want to see that place.
yeah. So we have a bank of scopes. Generally, we have 1 or 2 scopes open every day. We are in the middle of a project where we're trying to absorb the airspace around the Santa Fe airport, which is actually one of the busiest small airports in the Southwest, and we're trying to bring it under our control and provide approach control services to Santa Fe. It's actually the only U.S. capital that doesn't have their own approach control service. So this project's been in work in some form or another since 1994. And we are literally we're on the cusp right now. So you talk about government working slow, but this time I think it's actually going to happen. So again, this is the airspace Troy was talking about with low north. Now you can see that this is really designed to work the practice areas off of Double Eagle. So when those aircraft take off, they come up out here and they do all their work over an unpopulated area. The Balloon Fiesta park is where, kind of like right in here somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, right about in here, I think.
Yep.
So, it can be a congested area, and that's why we created it. One, so trainees can work a lower level of traffic and get familiar, and then step up. But two, when we have the young eagles flying, when we have a lot of practice area activity, when we have a lot of balloon activity, this opens up.
Yep. So one-stop shop. We're talking about these information displays at every position. This will give us airport data for Albuquerque, airport data for Double Eagle, and then with these push buttons we can get approach plate information, frequencies, altitudes of airfields, anything like that that you might need if you're away from one of our airports but you need some other place or some other information. We have access to a lot of information. This will give us all the notices to air missions, any closures of airports in our surrounding vicinity, lots of notes on there. Like I said, all the approach plates, checklist. This is our weather display. Gives us up-to-the-minute weather, right? It's real time. A good weather system. This will give us gust front prediction, wind shear alert, microburst. We'll get all that info from here in real time.
And we also keep a bank of information for access. So one of the most important services we provide to you guys is service in an emergency, right? So in the areas where you're asked to monitor, then, well, you have easy access to air traffic control. So if something is going awry in your aircraft, let us know, and we will get you help no matter where you are. We will get you help. So we just need to know your call sign, what's going on, and where you are. Because we don't know where you are just by looking out the window, particularly if there's multiple balloons. So if you can tell us what's happening, and the geographic location of the city, we will get you help as quickly as possible.
And here's a 1 hour time lapse just showing the 5th of November in 2021 for that hour from 6 to 7 local. This is just the aircraft in that 1 hour sped up. So, you know, there's a significant volume here you may or may not be paying attention to, right? If you're way over here and all this, you know, a lot of this obviously happened on the south side of the airport, you may never even look over there and see it. But
and we go through periods of high activity, right? So right now we've got the firefighting crews. I mean, they are in and out just like they're a machine right now. So we've got heavy jets and small jets and scoopers in and out all day long, and that's in addition to the military who flies in and our trainers, and then let's not forget Southwest and American and all the normal traffic.
that's it, all the normal traffic. So this is a training base, obviously, for the military. We have several flight schools, both at the Sunport and at Double Eagle, so we get a wide variety of aircraft. The control tower.
I've got a question right here.
Oh, go for it. Yes, sir.
So when you mention geographic location,
Yes.
what's a good description?
I'm going down at Montano and
There you go.
Tours,
If you
or-
give us a road, even the new people who didn't grow up here, they will turn around and scream. Like, hey.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The question was a geographic location, how precise or how varied can we be? And you can be really precise.
And we'll ask.
Well, yeah, we will ask.
We'll ask.
Where do you think you're going to wind up? And if you tell us I-25 in Comanche, that's where we're sending the state police or fire rescue or whatever you need. Whatever you tell us you need, we'll go there.
We
So
can
you
also,
can get-
We can also take points off of any geographic points. Hey, I'm 1 mile north of the stadium. I'm 3 miles northeast of the Big I. You know, I'm 5 miles west of the crest. The more specific you can get, the faster we can get you help.
Right.
But there's geographic locations, and all of our controllers
Yep.
live here, and most of us have lived here for a long time.
Yes. Sorry. It is.
Surface characteristics are useful. Yes, crossroads are probably the most useful.
Yes. But we have distance measuring equipment, right? In hand, instantly. So if you tell us I'm 3 miles west of this place, don't worry about lat longs or anything that you have to think about. I'm 3 miles west of the Balloon Fiesta Park, and we will get distance measuring equipment and we'll get someone close. So it's pretty easy for us. Again, we're here to help. We have lots of tools you may not even think about if you're in trouble. So call. The first thing is to call.
So it's important to note that our radar is not located with our tower. So our tower is upstairs. Our radar room is downstairs in the basement. There are no lights. They do communicate constantly, and all of our controllers are certified to work on both. So if they're a tower certified controller, they're also going to be a radar certified controller. So we do have radar blind spots. Blind spots are generally have to do with altitude. Our radar is actually located at the airport, so most of our blind spots have to do with low altitude aircraft. So the lower you are, the less chance we have of receiving a radar return.
And you'll find that sometimes communication issues coincide, right? If you're too low for the radar, I'm not saying you're too low for the radio, but you're getting close, right? They kind of operate on the same principle, right? This is line of sight type equipment.
So this is true for clusters of balloons. Coordination between the TRACON and the tower cab is essential for timely and safe services for aircraft operations in and around the airport, especially for law enforcement and medevacs. That's another thing people don't consider. We have multiple law enforcement in the air all the time, every day. And we also have medevacs transitioning between all of our different hospitals all day long, every day. And they're coming in from Gallup, and they're coming in from Moriarty and all other places.
And part of the altitude restrictions on that main chart that you guys are going to have burned in your mind, where do I have to be this altitude? How close can I be to the airport? A lot of that has to do with Presbyterian, Hart, and UNM are all right just north of the field. And there are constantly A-Star helicopters in, out, going through there. So part of the altitudes north of the field especially are based on that high volume of traffic between the Sunport and the hospitals all the time.
So this particular picture, this is runway 8. runway 8 departure is going to turn left and away from the mountain. They're going to be at this area, at this balloon area, in about 2 to 3 minutes after departure, or even less. So it's very little time for a wide-body jet to depart Albuquerque and get over the Balloon Fiesta Park. It's very, very quick. So the more info we have, the better.
Typically, what altitude would they be at by the time they go around there?
85 to 95.
100. The
Oh,
question
sorry, the
was,
question.
what altitude would a wide-body jet be crossing that particular point at? So 8,500 to 9,500, and that's going to vary.
It's going to vary. In the summertime, it's worse. You know how they climb in the summer, especially A321 to Atlanta. You see that one every day, twice a day, and you see them going north, and they're like, oh, man, is that plane going to climb? It's tough. The summertime is tough. Yes, sir. Okay. Right. Okay, hold it. The question is, typically, the majority of balloon operations are in the northwest quadrant. We're going to talk about the southwest quadrant near the airport. If we're okay, so okay, can you grab me the chart again? The chart that we're talking about. Keep going. Yeah, go back one. There we go. Perfect. You're talking about this area? Okay, we don't want you to climb there. Don't climb there. No. This coming over across the airport, we want you to climb. Correct. If you're going to cross over, call us. Yeah, see, here is the airport right here. This is runway 8. If we're talking about this area right here, we do not want you to climb. The aircraft are descending. Correct. We do not. Aircraft are either descending to land 8 or climbing off of 2-6. We do not want you climbing there. This is a no-go. This is a no-go. This is the 6,000. This orange, alternate color, let's call it. It's not quite orange. It's not quite yellow. This alternate color area is 6,000. The red zone is, I'm in an emergency. I'm coming in there. Then we can do what we need to do. But yeah, that's a no-go area. That is a very dangerous spot to be at any altitude. Because you got to remember, the outer marker's 5 out, and we're coming out of 7,200. 50, 51 or 52 at the airport, depending on where they touch down. So, it's a pretty good descent rate, and they're going to come to ground level at some point. You don't want to be in there. That's a bad spot. We're talking about going over top of this?
Yeah, he can go over the top.
Yeah,
of
but
that.
you got to be over the top. You can't be in there and start a climb.
Yeah, this portion here, no deviation, right? We don't want you in there. Now, if you have to be in there, let's just say it's an emergency or distress condition, right?
Yeah.
Could you grab the mic there, Steve? Yes. Yeah. Okay. This area, we don't want you flying in this area, period, at any altitude. Why? Because we've got aircraft in that critical phase of flight. Back here, we said at or below 6,000. And that was to accommodate the kind of flying over the downtown and maybe making this kind of a landing area, right? Now, let's say you're in a situation where environmental conditions are preventing you from avoiding this area. Get on the radio with us immediately. Yeah. Let us know what's going on, right? But for all intensive purposes, if you can control your balloon, we do not want you in this area at any phase. In here, if you're drifting south and going to cross over the airport, we want you to climb. That's the difference in the two. And I can see where the colors maybe are a little confusing there. Maybe we could change that. But that's the difference. If you're coming over the field, we want you high, right? Because you're close in. We got our planes lower, right?
Yep.
As you go out, lower, because your planes are going to be higher. Does that make sense? I clarify some things?
So if I'm over downtown,
Okay.
Downtown.
I'm in that yellow area.
Okay?
I know I'm going to be in that red area. You want me to come?
Call. No, I want you to call. I want you to land, number one. If you can't land and you're forecasting yourself to be in this area, I want you to call the tower right away and ask them what.
Well,
It depends. I can't give you a straight answer. What's our traffic situation like?
Yeah.
Air traffic is very
It's so dynamic.
right? It's not always the same. We've got helicopters, like Jeremy said. We've got law enforcement does a lot of operations in this area. We've got a lot going on.
Yep.
So my advice to you is contact the tower. Say, hey, I'm forecasted to land in this area. What do you want me to do?
Right. And then we will move planes. We will move helicopters. We will do whatever we got to do. The problem is, don't be in there and then realize you didn't pre-plan. Now I'm stuck. I'm here at 65 and I see a jet. That's what we don't want. Give us enough time to make a timely action, right? If we have to take a guy off the final, that's what we have to do, right? Like Jeremy said at the very beginning, and Steve would reiterate, the first section in our book says you're not going to let him hit. Everything else after this, good judgment, but you're not going to let this happen, so we won't. If you can't, if you're in an emergent situation, we're going to fix it. We're going to help you fix it.
Guys, we request that if you have questions, please write them down on this card, and we will review the questions and get them back. We really don't want to let this diverge into a question and answer session, because these guys just don't have the time.
Final point is, if we're talking to you, we can make
can affect
all
change,
kinds of
yes.
decisions, right? Whether it's you or the other aircraft. So, all right, let's move quickly. We're taking a lot of time here, but now we're going to go over airborne hotspots. Yeah, it's going to make more sense with these pictures. Okay, so this right here is the runway. Runway 8, runway 26. The two boxes here are either our arrival or our departure corridor. This is our departure corridor for runway 3 and our arrival corridor for runway 21. And then this is our favorite traffic pattern, which is our left-hand traffic pattern, because our streets are very angular and it's very easy for pilots to fly.
And the hospitals and the stadium, everything else that happens in that blue box.
So there's a lot of stuff happening there, generally speaking. But this box in particular is our highest volume piece of airspace. So there are always heavy jets, fast jets, slow jets, props, and occasionally balloons. So this shows an area to join final for various runways.
Runway
So
21 for this one.
Yeah, for 2-1, we see our feeders coming in from the center from all different directions, and then this is how traffic would generally go to the runway if there was no other traffic in their way, but that doesn't happen very often. So there's going to be a lot of twisting and turning and speeding up and slowing down on their way in there.
This 8 departure.
Yep, runway 8 departures, turning to the north. Again, our traffic pattern is all dictated by the mountain, essentially. Everything that we do is dictated by our proximity to Sandia Peak. We just went over that, so let's not talk about that. Oh, wow, is that it?
That's it.
Are we done? How did we do?
How did we do? No. All right, so the boss is going to tell us what we can and cannot answer, just for political reasons.
What
right?
procedures do I use to jump the crest? What does jump the crest mean?
Go over? So
Well,
you want to...
if you're originating here and your winds are going to blow straight there, I mean, I don't see why we would need to talk to you except for that.
Yeah, but are you looking to go towards Moriarty, or who tell me your question. Okay. Yeah. The wind. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, how do we get over the peak? Okay. So I'm
We don't do a lot of
going
traffic.
to go out on a
over-
limb and say we would not deviate. We would not be applying the deviation to that. We would want you to call to enter the outer ring of the Class Charlie and get all the appropriate services, meaning here's the wind, here's the altimeter, here's other traffic in your area. Don't forget that the mountain is this high, or the antenna, or other things that we've heard that day, right? Because we broadcast on the ATIS things like, hey, the top of the mountain is obscured with clouds. You may or may not have that information. So get all of the Class C services.
I didn't realize you guys jumped the crest.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's high up for a balloon. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Do you have some more questions?
I'm not sure about this question, but they're just asking about drones in Class C. And
Oh.
they operate under their own rules. They're supposed to.
Correct. Different rules.
Yeah, that's a whole other mess we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think.
So we have an automated process for drones. A drone
Lance.
pilot can go to a Lance, it's called Lance, and they say, I want to fly here, and we cap their altitude. They can say, hey, within about 5 miles of the airport, there's virtually no drone activity. Beyond that, it's generally limited between 1 to 400 feet, depending on proximity.
Right.
to
And
the
there are
airport.
boxes that Lance will tell you yes or no and how high you can go. Lance is a whole different program, but yes.
Did you get your question? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay. Balloon typically fly within 2 to 3 hours after sunrise. How busy is air traffic at that time? What is your busiest time? Our busiest time is generally between 6:30 to 8:30
Tuesday through Friday.
in the morning, which we have a cargo push. So FedEx brings their big jet in, and they sort it, and then they put it on little tiny jets, and they shoot off to Durango and Farmington and Silver City and all these other places. But we have peaks and valleys throughout the day, so that is almost our guaranteed push in the morning. But at any given time, we could be talking to 2 aircraft or 15 to 20. So it really just depends on all the things going on at any given time. And then we have a lunch push, and then we have an evening push right around 6 to 7:30. Generally, right when I get on position, it gets really busy. So when I'm working,
Self-induced. Self-induced, Jeremy.
And I just want to reiterate, the LOA, all of this, it's the Band-Aid, right? We wanted a temporary solution. So the work group kicks off tomorrow, the national work group does. And we're hoping for something more permanent. We were talking about the drones where there's that automated computer program that says, hey, I'm going to fly in this box, this box, this box. One of the proposals floated to the work group is, hey, let's do something like that for the ballooning community, right? Where maybe they can just log in and say, I expect to fly in these boxes, et cetera, et cetera. That's just one of the many proposals on the table right now. So, and I know Quad A does have some representation on that work group. So we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to working with all of you. With that said, are there any further questions? Because otherwise, we're probably going to wrap this up and get out of here.
Yeah, we don't want it to be contentious. We're not the police, right? We don't want it to be contentious. We want to get the conversation started so we can help out.
Okay, so we were told to call approach first, no longer true. We'd prefer you call the tower, right? Tower can communicate with the TRACON. The tower's going to be able to visually see you and acquire you. The TRACON's not going to be able to see you. We kind of talked about that. So we would prefer you call the tower. The tower may say, hey, I need you to contact the TRACON to resolve some traffic situations or something like that. But your call should be to the tower.
Especially if you've got your Mode C and ADS-B encoder. If you have those pieces of equipment, it's much easier for the radar room to find you.
I will say one of our concerns for the work group from the air traffic perspective is 10 hot air balloons going up. Do we need to talk to 10 of them? Because frequency congestion is a concern of ours, right? We have to transmit maybe separation messages that are way higher priority than just a check-in message, right? So that's one of our concerns. Another one of our concerns is ADS-B out. If we get 50 balloons turning on ADS-B out, what does that look like for our radar scope? Are you going to overwhelm our system? Are you going to cause radar clutter? Are we going to be able to see an IFR aircraft maybe coming over the top of you guys at an altitude? Those are our concerns, and that's going to be addressed at the work group, right? Can you think of anything else?
That's good. I like that.
Those are the two big ones: communication, frequency congestion, and radar congestion. You got anything else?
I'm going to just ask you to answer this one question. There's 4 questions on this card, and they're kind of general questions, but communications, if we talk to you, do we maintain until landing? I believe you said yes. Once we start talking to you.
Once you start talking to us, the controller will release you, right? And what does that sound like? They'll usually say, November 1, 2, 3, 4, frequency change approved, right? Something to that effect.
Correct.
If you establish communications with you, we want communications to be maintained. Otherwise, we'll tell you, hey, we don't need to talk to you.
And that can also come from you. Like, hey, we're done. We're going to land right here.
Is that it?
We're ready to go. Then those should be the next words you hear. Frequency change approved. Have a good day. Hold on. Okay, the question was about altitude for good communication on the radios. Okay. So I think the appropriate response would be at something like 750 or 1,000 feet AGL. Hey, this is our spot. We've got a good spot. We're ready to go on our own. Good day. Frequency change approved. Have a good one. It's all about pre-planning, right? Communication and pre-planning. If we can do those two things, I think we can solve a lot of this.
Okay, I'm going to cut this off here. I want to thank everybody for coming. I personally found it very, very useful. I think a lot of other people did. This is just the beginning of communication with Tower and with FISDO. Definitely willing to entertain more questions. If you have questions that didn't get answered today, get them to us. We will relay them to Mr. Bond and or FISDO where it's appropriate, and we will also be publishing answers in the Cloud Council.
Absolutely. And like I said, I want to make this a community. We want to welcome you guys into the airspace. We want this to be, a mutual effort.
Thank you.
We're going to run through some hiccups, yes. We're going to have to go through this work group, hopefully get some guidance for there. This is what we've got from now. Is it perfect? Nothing's perfect, right?
Better than we have before.
But at least we have balloons back up in the sky. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Stephen, thank you so much for your time. Come back anytime. We'd love to have you. We have another presenter tonight who was with us. And before I call him up, I was hoping I could get Dave Eichhorn to just bring up something here and give him 2 minutes. And he's not selling you anything, so don't worry about that. David?
All right, thank you. Today and today only. No. Okay, so in the discussions with engineers and people who know what they're doing, the wattage coming out of the antenna is about 200 watts, and it ought to be away from people. Typically, most guys don't like it close to the crotch. So because we fly a fabric aircraft, my intention is to mount this up on the scoop or above the scoop in the Nomex, around the throat, at least 6 feet away from people. The other thing is people can actually block the signal. So if the air traffic controllers are depending on us to be able to see us, then having it up higher is better. The other option is like what Peter and Barbara do, which is dangle it below the basket, which works real well until you go into the river. This device, it's a Garmin GTX 335, if you care. It's a transponder. It's designed to be retrofitted into aircraft. We had to buy the optional barometric altimeter and then the GPS. So the GPS antenna is mounted here. ADS-B is designed to turn on automatically for everybody else in the world. So once you're rolling down the runway, taking off, and you're going at least 50 miles an hour, the transponder turns on and starts telling the world that here I am. All right? So all we need to do is go 50 miles an hour and everything takes care of itself. All right? The alternative, and I've got to give a shout out to Mark Coleman up in Alamosa. He's been a great help in helping. What do we need to do this? So you got an airborne and a ground switch. So once you take off, you flip it to the air mode, and the transponder takes over. I can give you a quick preview of what it looks like. But it'll start telling the world. Troy was telling me beforehand that he has seen near misses avoided because of ADSB. Because it turns on automatically, those of us who maybe turned it off before can't. All right, and he has actually himself made announcements on the radio, said, hey, November 7505 Lima, if you're on frequency, you need to turn right immediately. You've got traffic 1 o'clock in less than a mile. All right, and he said when he's done that, November 7505 Lima comes back and goes, say what? Turn right immediately, you have traffic at less than a mile. So you can see where they're coming from. They have seen the value in having this system where everybody is showing everybody else where they're at. This little thing up here is a battery indicator. It's got a built-in battery. I am trying to stay away from FAA approved batteries because they're $800, whereas the battery that's in here is a 6 amp hour and it's less than 100. So my argument to the FAA is we will not charge this on board the aircraft. We will do it like we do our radios, our flight decks, everything else. We'll take it inside the house, we'll plug it in and charge it up inside the house so it does not have to be a TSO'd battery. I don't know if they're going to accept that argument yet, but that's what the argument I'm making. Okay, the code. There are two codes. I will tell you, in the 50 years, God, that's hard to say, I've been flying, they used to trust pilots to set the transponder codes. They don't really do that anymore. So this code for your N number and your IKO identifier is permanently set. And by permanently, I mean it's in the firmware. All right. So when I bought this, they put in my N number and IKO. If you have multiple envelopes that you want to fly this under, you have to take it to a repair station or a certified repairman person to reset the code, because it is resettable, but not owner-operator resettable. There are some horror stories out there where the IKO identifier got set wrong and it confused the computer, and there's nothing worse than a confused computer. And so that's why they don't allow the owner-operators to do it. And I will tell you, as a repair person who might end up having to do this, yeah, I'll get out. We're going to have to be doubly and triply sure that those codes are set correctly. All right. It weighs about 13 pounds. The plan is to strap it in like you do your propane tanks. I can put rings on here to make sure it doesn't slip up or down. The transponder itself is $3,300. Everything else you see here costs more than that or added all together. We are hoping that if this becomes a requirement, that Garmin will make us a sweetheart deal so that we can cut the price. The European version of this sells for 4,000 euros or about $4,500. We'd like to see the price point get all the way down to $2,500, but $3,000 is the dream right now. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Just because he had the ADSB with him tonight, I thought it was worth our time to take a look at it and see what it involves.
Given the discussion. Yes.
Correct. So, our next presenter comes all the way from somewhere in Texas, right? Somewhere. Is it Dallas area? He comes from the Dallas area. Pat Cannon is the president of the Balloon Federation of America, and I'm proud to have him here tonight. So.
Thank you very much. I did make it. Barely made it, but I did make it. Thank you very much for Pam and Alan for missing part of the meeting to come and meet me at the airport for an exceedingly late American Airlines flight. For those of you that have been watching the weather, you know the Midwest is covered up with thunderstorms, and Dallas is right in the middle of it today. And, you know, when that happens, it wreaks havoc with not just Dallas, but every place they're going, and everybody's coming from somewhere else into the Dallas area. But I did make it, and I'm very proud to be here. Thanks for inviting me. See a lot of old friends, emphasis on old. Aww. Well, one in particular, JD, he came over to say hi. I'm very glad to see JD here now in his retirement. See, I can tell you stories about the travels he and I made around the country doing the beach jet check rides or diamond jet check rides for a couple of guys down South Texas. So we've had a few adventures, I think, over the years, JD. And that's very true. And JD was a pleasure to travel with. And there are many times when we came back to Dallas, and I took him and guided him carefully to the next flight to come back to Albuquerque. And he'll remember that. He's laughing because he remembers some of those nights. I've got a kind of multi-purpose for being here. First of all, it is incumbent upon the BFA to try to get out to meetings on occasion for any of the large, especially the larger associations and groups around the country. And I know that we haven't been very present here. And I want to apologize for the BFA for not doing that. You know, you are part of our ballooning community. The BFA is about balloonists, not about BFA members in particular, but about all balloonists. And I want you to believe that coming from me. I've been in this business now, in ballooning business for 44 years, I think it is, and I have been flying airplanes and helicopters for about 55 years. So I've been around the block a couple of times, and over those years I've been associated a great deal with programs that needed to have national viability. And I think that what we want to try to bring to Quad A is that we have always respected what you guys do here, so much so that I've begun discussions with your educational committee about some programs that we can have partnerships in, especially educational programs. Something we haven't done very well over the last 10 years is educational programs, and we intend to rectify that, and we're going to rectify it this year. To start with that, we did, many of you may have heard, we started with we had a program that was 7 hours long. It was only for personal attendance. We couldn't do it for that long a period of time virtually, but it was a recurrent for flight instructors. Now, I know that you've had one here. I know it was very successful. I think I was told it was about 4 hours. Is that correct, Pam? Yeah, about 4 hours long. And anything we can do to educate our privates that want to be commercials, our commercials that want to do a better job of training, and even the examiners. And the examiners are a big part of this, because the examiners, many of us examiners, a lot of us older guys, when we went through to get our commercial, we didn't have the benefits of all the education that we're getting today. So, and the examiners in some cases don't know all of the things that are really required and how they do it. And the standardization is not as great as it should be. And for that, we are also putting together an examiners forum from the BFA. I know that many of you know that there is a forum out there right now for examiners being run by someone else. We intend to do something that will prepare the examiners that are lighter than air examiners to be able to go through their national training every 2 years, and to do that for lighter than air and not for airplanes, which is what's happening right now. Okay, it's important for us to do that. I was really very happy to come in and watch this presentation, because this is great. What was going on up here with a complete explanation of what ADSB is and what the LOAs are supposed to do for you is extremely important to us. So important, in fact, that the FAA has reached out to us. AFS 800 has reached out to the BFA as the national organization and asked us to provide 2 people that will be on the national forum to discuss lighter than air operations in ADSB or in ADSB required space and to the surface Class C. Now, I don't know, and somebody else can answer this question for me, how many Class C airports there are in the United States, but I can guarantee you that almost every one of those has lighter than air aircraft involved somewhere in and around that Class C airspace. So being shut out of Class C airspace is a problem for us, and we're trying to rectify that as best we can. The other person with two of us are on the committee at this point in time, that's myself and Sam Parks. We have signed non-disclosure agreements because it's important to the organization that's doing these discussions with all of the stakeholders, and all of ballooning is considered to be a stakeholder in this program. It's important for them to keep information from leaking, if you will, back to the system before preparations are made for the ADSB program that they will present to Lighter Than Air. I think it's important because, and it started here, of course, and all of you know, that the push for some kind of ADSB relief for us in Class Charlie airspace began right here. And it began politically here with a movement to retain the rights and privileges that you've always had in the past here, even though we've gone into the ADSB and under Class Charlie airspace realm. So we're now working nationally, and that national program will have an effect here. It will have an effect on all the other Class Cs in the country. And when we are finally released to report some of the results of that, we will certainly do so. But I want to make sure that you understand that we're doing this for all ballooning. We're doing this for Albuquerque. We're doing this for all of ballooning. You're a local organization, and you have been very, very fortunate to have had people here that took it upon themselves to go to bat for ballooning here in Albuquerque, and the results you're beginning to see up here. Sometimes some of this maybe looks a little complicated, and it was complicated to me. I came in halfway through it and went, what am I looking at? But by the same token, we're trying to do this nationally, and we're doing it for all of ballooning. You don't have to be a BFA member to benefit, but as an organization put together for these purposes, we now have what we feel is some swing in Washington, D.C. And as a result of that, we're going to try to do some things that we haven't been able to do before, which is to get actively involved with AFS 800 rulemaking and get actively involved with the government to make sure that we are considered when rules are made. That is my goal. To talk about that a little bit more, there's something you don't know. UASs. Do you know what's about to happen with UASs? I didn't either. Found out the hard way. A committee was put together in Washington to study UAS. Not just the operation of UAS, but the remote, out of line of sight UASs. All of the big warehousing operations, FedEx, UPS, Amazon, who else? Walmart. They're all going to have drones, large drones. They're going to be operating beyond line of sight. What does that mean? Yeah, they're going to be operating blind. They do not currently have see and avoid capability. And they convened a commission made up of, I have the list of 99 groups that were in it. And guess who was not in it? Lighter Than Air. We're going to bat for that. I have a letter being constructed right now to go to Washington, D.C. to put us on that. They've done some findings, and you won't know the findings. The findings basically say that UAS aircraft on that mission below 500 feet will have the right of way over all other aircraft. That's what it says. It was so unaccepted within the 99 group of people, among the most associations in the U.S. that have anything to do with aviation, a whole bunch that don't. When they did that, there was an uprising. And the uprising was, we don't like your results. So it's going back to open discussion, open forum, and we are involved deeply in providing input for the LTA community, not the least of which is why, as national airspace users, we were not considered in the initial decision. Because where do we spend most of our time? Off airports, under 500 feet and takeoff and landing configuration, right? We can go down to the surface as long as we're not 500 feet from people, objects, or things, which we do very often, and especially around here. But it puts us in harm's way. It puts us in harm's way right in the face of a blind UAV. And guess how big they are? They're larger than that TV screen by a bunch, and traveling at 60 knots, and carrying a package. And they're not going to see you. So there's a big push on for see and avoid, but they pushed it off and said, well, there are so few aircraft below 500 feet that it just doesn't matter. The likelihood of an incident or an accident and they gave a bunch of studies that were done nationally around the country. Not one of those studies ever mentioned lighter than air. And we're going to make sure that happens. We're going to make sure it happens right away. I already mentioned the educational partnerships we'd like to have. Let me see. Also, Class 2 medicals. We have crickets so far. Now, that's good for us. Crickets means they've not come up with any kind of a final rule yet. And that's important to us because it gives us an opportunity to do two things. Number one is to educate people. How many people went to the National Convention in Topeka? All right, a few people went to the National Convention in Topeka. So you know that we had the FAA there. We had Mike Millard, who is our contact at AFS 800 in Washington, D.C. We had Rob Lowe there, who is the regional director, Southwest Region, for the FAA regional office, which is the next guy up from the FISDOs. And they were both there and had a wonderful time, learned a lot, and we featured an interview in the magazine with Mike Millard. And he, I think, pretty much said he wants to get a balloon certificate. All right, so we're going to work on him. But we are working with Susan Northrup. For those of you that don't know, Susan Northrup is the federal air surgeon. And I have had personal conversations with her, not something online that was produced by somebody like we've seen, but I've had personal conversations with her, and we are now, BFA is now on their partnership committees anytime medical issues come up. She's also very, very interested in making sure that balloonists have an equal or better opportunity to get their medicals. Why? What have we done for the last, any airplane pilots in the room here that have to have medical? Okay, couple. We've prepared ourselves, didn't we? When we got our pilot certificate, we prepared to get into that rotation of medical after medical after medical. We know what's required. But most people that could be flying balloons for 20, 30 years, 40 years have never had to get a medical. And because of that, you've not gotten into that rotational issue of how do I watch my physical well-being? How do I watch my health? What do I need to keep track of? What are the kinds of things that I can do and can't do and fly? Those people that are going to need to get a second-class medical are going to be subjected to that. So we brought in Alan Kozarski also to the event, and Alan Kozarski is personal friends with Susan Northrup. Alan is a personal friend of mine. I've flown with him for the last 35 years in airplanes that we share an interest in, the MU-2. And Alan is one of the chief medical examiners in the country. He is the personal eye. In fact, he runs the eye surgeon program. How many of you know about the Orbis program? Have you ever seen that Orbis airplane? It was a great big DC-10 that was painted white. They'd park it on airports worldwide, and they would do eye surgery. That was Alan Kozarski's project. So he's really high up there. When somebody needs something done, he's the guy they go to. They consult with him. He knows all about the program now with ballooning, and he is doing the best that he can to educate and help. So this brings us back again to the BFA's existence, is to educate people, to educate balloonists, to make sure we stay ahead of this problem. We are going to have this problem when second-class medical is finally announced as for a date of application. Remember what it said in the NPRM. They wanted to impose this within 180 days of the final rule. We pushed out from the Balloon Federation and said we need to make that at least a year, because I don't think we can get everybody through in 180 days. But it also is incumbent upon each pilot to assess your own physical condition, and if you are going to need to get a second-class medical, don't wait. Start the process. Very, very important to start that now. It may cost some more money if you have some type of underlying condition that you're going to have to deal with. But Alan said, and I agree with him, there are very few conditions that would be permanently grounding for anyone. I mean, there are some psychological problems, and there are some serious, serious physical problems that could ground you. But even diabetes doesn't ground you. I had a commercial pilot working for me that was a test pilot in the MU-2 with one eye. He had his left eye only, and he was one of our best test pilots, and he held a second-class medical. So there aren't very many things that will hold you from getting a second-class medical. It's just that if you have any kind of physical things that you're aware of, it's better to start early and start working on that process. And we need to find medical examiners in the area that are balloon friendly, that are pilot friendly. Believe it or not, there are some that are not. They're in it for the money and doing the medicals, and they're not in it for your well-being. So you need to find AMEs that are sensitive to any position or problem that you might have that will allow them to work directly with you. We've got a person in Dallas that's been being turned down now for over a year because of a medical condition of type 2 diabetes. We now have him on track to get his second-class medical. It's going to take a little while longer, and it's going to cost a few more dollars, but we're going to get him there. We're going to take him to the finish line. So that's really all I came to do. First of all, I loved attending this event, and I will be back. I promise you I will. I'll come back sometime in the winter. I got to see winter in Albuquerque. So I came from Michigan, so all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. For the drones to have that right away below 500 feet, are they saying all those drones will have ADSB out?
No. But there is an indication that they will have ADSB sensitivity. In other words, they can detect ADSB. Guess who doesn't have ADSB? What they are basing everything on is visual sight of an ADSB of a drone. Now, if you have a drone approaching you at 60 knots, do the math. When are you going to hear that drone? Maybe a quarter mile away? Right before impact, yeah. So you're going to see it and hear it right before impact, and it's coming right at you. And can we get out of the way? No, we have no ability to detect. Remember the OODA loop? Some of you heard me talk about the OODA loop, where you hear something or one of your senses tells you something's happening. You turn, you recognize, you make decisions, and then you act. Right? You can't. You may detect it, but before you get to the act phase, you're trapped. You're trapped in an 80 to 200 or 300,000 cubic foot balloon that's going to move like a cargo ship at sea, right? You don't have the ability to get out of the way. So we're taking to task two issues with the government on this. And the first one, of course, is why weren't we considered? And then the second one is we want consideration, and here's what we have to say about it. And we're going to be looking for input on that from anybody who's interested. And you can call us. Call your regional director here, the BFA, or call me. I'll leave some of my business cards up here. If you want to call me direct. I'll take it on. Any other questions? I'll say one last thing before I leave. What I've attempted to do with the BFA is to try to relieve the perception that we're a good old boys club. We're not. I don't think we really ever have been, but that is some people's perception. For those of you that know me, you know me well enough to know that I don't play those games, and I don't play political games. I just don't do it. And I've imposed on my board the idea that we need to be more visible in the field. We need to have programs that everyone can participate in, and we need to make those available to all people, whether you're a BFA member or not. But what's our challenge? Our challenge is membership. We went down during COVID years to around 1,800 members. We had been at one point in time, in the early days of Balloon Federation, 4,500 members plus. And it had worked its way backwards and gone down, and then when we got hit with COVID, it went right to the toilet. And a lot of it had to do with the problems of communication between the BFA and its membership to get to those people who had not renewed and to bring them back in the fold. But everything, the world turns by money. And the same is true with the Balloon Federation. We would have to have 3,000 members to simply break even on expenses for the things we do for all ballooning. We'd have to have 3,000 members to even come close to breaking even on our annual programs. The programs for the kids, you're having a camp right here in Albuquerque. The programs for the kids are not, those are paid for some by the kids. Believe me, a lot of that money comes directly out of the BFA. So the programs that we have and the good that we're trying to do cost money, and for that we need membership. We haven't changed our membership dues 25 years, something like that, at least 25 years. We may see that coming again in the future. We may see a slight tick up because we just can't survive the way that we're doing it right now. So we're looking at outside programs. Fortunately for us, the convention was very successful. Next time we do a convention, if Tim were here, he would shoot me. but because he was the one that brought it to Topeka, Kansas, and it was a very, very successful event. But the next time we're going to do it someplace where the airlines actually fly. So, I'm sorry, Tim, and he's probably rolling over, and he's right. Well, we're in the middle of a BFA meeting as we speak. Well, we're probably ended by now. If I know them, they've ended it by now since I wasn't there. But we did have a BFA meeting tonight, and I elected to be here with you because I felt that this was more important, and my VP, Josh Sneed, could take care of what we needed to take care of tonight. It was much more important for me to be there with you. But for those of you that are not members of the BFA, if we've ever done anything to cause you not to want to be a member, I will take a personal phone call from you, and when we're done, I'll give you one of these little brand new brochures that we just came up with, and I'm going to leave a couple of them here, and it's got this little deal right on the bottom. All you have to do is shine your phone on it. It'll take you right to the sign-up page of the website. So I'm going to leave some up here for you. For those of you that are not BFA members, if there was a reason, please call me and let me know why. I will get it fixed. And we'd like to have you as a member of the organization, and we will do everything we can to uphold what our charter says, and that is everything we do is for the good of our lighter than air community. I promise you that. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for all that good news about drones. I guess it's better to be informed than to not know about it, right?
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to make one more diversion from the schedule, and I'm going to do presentations for our departed officers. We have two folks who just left the board as of April. One of them is our president, Jennifer Garcia, and she served from 2020 to 2022, so this is the standard plaque we give her. She said she was going to be here, but I don't see her here, so... Oh, good. Jennifer, would it be okay if I gave it to Sam and Sam delivered it at work tomorrow? Would you do that, Sam? Jennifer, since you're online, thank you very much. You took us through some turbulent waters for a couple of years. And the other plaque is for Elisa Bustamante, who served for a year as our special events chair. I will, unless anybody can get it to her, I will take the responsibility to get it to her because I know where she lives. Other than that, we're going to go into, shall I just go to the VP report since I'm first?
Yeah, we're going to go through the quick board updates, committee updates.
So, next couple of meetings, we have lined a speaker up. The May meeting is going to be William Manis doing a hands-on. June, I'm a month behind. How did I get to be June? It's not, almost June. The June speaker is going to be William Manis doing a hands-only CPR, possibly with assistance from our new special events committee. And July, did I get that right now, is going to be our very own Blair Kaufman talking about ballooning in Oklahoma, which is probably going to be a bit of a revelation for several of us because there's significant differences between flying in Albuquerque and flying in Oklahoma, as you're going to find out. So that should be interesting also. Other than that, I don't have anything else, and we're probably going to be going pretty quickly down the list here.
Thank you, Peter. We will have a few things here. Taylor Caldwell is gone, unless she's... Is Taylor online or anything? We don't have her. Okay. So our secretary's report, Taylor's not here. Dick Rice, I know he's here. Did he leave already? Okay. Yeah, there are 2 new members, and I will tell you who they are because I know one of them is present right now. Where is that person? Oh, no. Let's see. No, they're not present. So we have 2 new members, Tom Rousseau, and also our very own Tom Bueno has joined Quad A. I don't see either of them here. But it's always good to have new members, and just like the BFA, we all need to keep our new members and keep getting new members. So community relations, I don't think I've got anything for community. Oh, do you have? Okay, so I think Doug Doug Gant has a report.
Yeah, real quick from Jason Burns. He said that the Grand Chapter of New Mexico is having their annual fundraiser to provide scholarships to New Mexico students. To help with this, they are looking for a donation of 2 balloon flights to be raffled, and donations will be solicited and fundraised through October of this year, and for flights to be valid in 2023. I've got a name by the name of Jerry Satterfield, along with a couple of phone numbers and emails, but we'll send those out to everybody for you to get back in touch with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Next, Peg Bilson, Education.
I apologize that we do not have books, etc., to sell tonight. The person that normally brings those is severely under the weather for a bit. So trust us that next month we will have the books and everything here to sell. We had a fantastic in-person commercial pilot ground school. We had 19 students. It was a really engaging class, so we looked forward to that. And we're also progressing on our online self-paced crew course. So making very, very good progress with that. We just have a couple people that we're waiting for scripts on, and we'll be good to go. And then besides that, we're starting to work on the Fiesta Safety Seminar. So if you have any topics that you think you really want to know about and you want us to talk about, please send us a note, because our next meeting we're starting to pull together the list of speakers and agenda for our safety seminar. That's all we have.
Thank you, Ped. You guys do a great job as always. Next, Doug Gant with Flying Events.
All right, I do have a few things to go over here. As everyone knows, our May event, which would have been our Mother's Day event, we did cancel because of the weather. I did buy a bunch of carnations we were going to donate to all the moms who were out there. And obviously what I did was I just turned around that morning and took them to a facility called Genesis that's up in Rio Rancho. And they're a short-term rehabilitation and long-term care facility. And they really appreciated me dropping those off to everybody and to hand those out to everybody. Along with this brought up the second subject about what is a timeline for canceling an event. Okay, I mean, how much notice do we as pilots need? Is 6 hours too short? Is 24 hours too long? I'd like to get some information and some input from you from that particular standpoint, because we did hold off until just about Friday night late on canceling Saturday morning, just because I had one forecast that looked like it might squeak us through, but obviously it didn't from that standpoint. So I want to make sure that you as pilots have enough time to cancel, make other plans, and let your crew know from that particular standpoint. If you don't know by now, you should take a trip out to Rio Rancho and visit what used to be our club field. It is no more. They are putting this huge housing development out there. And I mean, it's no more. So we are now searching for a new home that we can call ourselves. From that particular, so because of that, Blair, Peter, and I met on May 18th with the mayor. We had a good meeting. Previously, Ray Bear, Peter, and I had met with the mayor a few months prior, and he's very pro-ballooning, and he wants to do what he can to help us from that particular standpoint. Blair, Peter, and I do have a meeting scheduled on June 9th with the Director of Parks and Rec. Ultimately, we are looking for a field that we can call our own. We want a balloon field that we can have. So that's what we're trying to work for from that particular standpoint. The June club flight is scheduled for June 11th, and it should be it's scheduled for the Rio Rancho field, but right now that's up in the air because I'm not sure what we're going to do, and I don't know that we can get it here to Fiesta Field because I think they're already filled from that particular standpoint. July event will be at Fiesta Field. August 13th, they're going to be in Rio Rancho. Whatever we can do. Those may be Hare and Hound events, we're not sure. And then September 11th, and a tune-up for Fiesta will be out here at Fiesta Field. I did talk to the gentleman from the tower tonight about trying to do a tour at some point. Things are loosening up with COVID, knocked any kind of tour out from that particular standpoint. but they are open to that, so possibly we can line up something on a Saturday after a balloon flight and go down there and have a tour with the tower. And I just want to reiterate the things that we do at flying events are going to be kind of what Stephen talked about tonight. That's communication and pre-planning. That's how we've got to plan our flights, and that's how we've got to move forward with the things that we do. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. This is a serious issue that we've got with where we can do our flying events from. We can use Fiesta Field. We need to get more comfortable with the LOA and flying there, but we've been flying half the time out in the Rio Rancho area, and development is coming, and we're going to have to deal with that. And how do we then find locations that we can fly from? So we are continuing that conversation. Crew development, Sue is, I believe, online, is she? She has no report. Okay, so crew development has no report. And Karen is here. She has no report for us. Okay, we move on into our next piece of our meeting, which is normally it's an FAA update opportunity, and I think they gave us a pretty good update today. Also, the next item that we normally have on our list is the BFA. Well, I think we've got a pretty good kind of update from the BFA. So the next one is VFRS, so Valencia Flying and Retrieval Service. Anybody want to talk? No report from VFRS. I believe Top Gun has a little event coming up this weekend. Pray for good weather. So they're doing their annual Rio Grande Classic. And so if you want to, I don't know if you can still get in, but no. The answer is absolutely not. I did see Sam here, Sam Parks, and I think he's headed out. He's gone. Anybody else from AIBF that wants to speak and give us an update? Anybody? No. Okay. So it's coming. It's coming pretty soon. And anybody from Balloon Foundation? Okay. Then without further ado.
Balloon Museum Foundation?
Yeah.
I'll do it real quick.
Oh, good.
I think as you probably noticed, coming in here, there is a lot of construction going on in the first floor here. That is going to be the 50th Balloon Fiesta exhibit. It's really starting to get moving and should be up and running sometime in September. So stay tuned for a large new exhibit at the museum that is going to be all about us. And I want to also thank AIBF for making a significant monetary contribution to help get the exhibit off the ground. And that's all I got. It looks like probably the next thing on our list is going to be the raffle. So let's do it, and then we can go home. All right. So we do have some good prizes here. The first and second prize actually come with a responsibility to the winner, because one of my favorite things to do is to read autobiographies of balloonists, all the interesting stories. So what the first prize is your very own autobiography. All you have to do is fill in the blank pages. And we expect to have it back within 6 months. So actually it's a really neat journal notebook. You can keep track of all your flights in it. And it is going to go to last 3 digits, 825. If you haven't left, if you're still here, you can become the proud owner of your very own autobiography. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Some folks have left. Let's go for another number. I'm going to keep digging here. How about, wow, that's the next one over, 824. How'd I do that? All right. Oh, no. Thank you. It's at least a pretty picture on the front. 824, that is you. Okay. And these are, thanks to Barbara, by the way, for providing these. This is a different picture, but the same idea. So if you would like to have a journal to keep track of all your escapades, then how about 845? Elaine, you lucky lady. I know you keep journals. We're going to re-gift it? She wants to re-gift it. So thanks to Elaine. Somebody else gets a chance here to. There it is. I'm losing it. How about 823? I'm really going with the 823 numbers. All right. Thank you. Good deal. I'll take that. Now, for something a little bit different, for the last of the three raffles, this is a grab bag that includes a Balloon Fiesta hat, very fancy, official, from 2019, a BFA Convention water jug, and a BFA Convention baggie. So let's pull one more number. These were brought back at great expense directly from Topeka, Kansas, from the National Convention. And how about 844? Is 844 here? Hey, I didn't see you at the convention, but I wasn't at the convention. Here we go. Here, we'll put that on there.
There we go. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Peter, for having a great raffle always and a great program tonight. One real quick thing, or two actually. One of them is that Pat Cannon mentioned that he's a representative on a meeting with the FAA tomorrow. I want you to know that Peter and I are going to be on that Zoom meeting, and we are your representatives to that organization. And I think it's for us, it's probably a good listening opportunity and finding out what the FAA is looking at with all this, although we can't really talk with you much about it until some things are becoming more finalized. The one other thing was that Ken Tooley did get an update from AIBF and Jennifer.
So Jennifer wanted you to know that we sent out the final approvals and letters last Friday. Additional pilot applications are now open until June 19th. So you'll need a code from the accepted primary pilot to apply as an additional pilot, but you have until June 19th. And just so you know, we have 83 RC balloons applications, which, if that holds through, would put us on the way for a record number of a Guinness record of RC balloons.
So
Kelly?
Do we have to get accepted, or are we automatically in it?
That's open, I think, until the end of the. That's still open for a couple more days on the RC, I think.
If we apply, are we automatically in?
I don't deal with acceptances, or that's not my deal.
Just a quick reminder from previous, I think you mentioned previous meeting, that if you did not, if you haven't seen an acceptance or sorry about that letter, check your spam folder.
So Kelly's just reminding us, if you have not seen any email from us and you applied as a primary pilot, do check your spam folder and junk folders. Everybody should have been notified as of the end of the day last Friday. So, yeah, we did get reports of those going into there. So, alrighty.
We have 4 scholarships to Balloon Camp that the board approved at the last meeting. And so we're excited. If you have students that would like to get in, let us know, let one of the board members know, and we will help you do that, assuming we have space available for those 4 scholarships.
For those of you on Zoom, what Blair just told everybody is that the board has approved 4 scholarships to the BFA Balloon Camp. And if you know somebody who'd like to get in, wants to see the scholarships, get in touch with a Quad A board member and apply at the BFA for the camp. 13 to 17, they're saying, is the age limit. And Albuquerque's camp is a day camp. Yeah, so you won't be staying overnight. It still goes on for the same number of days, but it is not a sleepover camp.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I guess I got to do it for the people on Zoom. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. I thought we had a great presentation, all of them. And so thanks, everybody, and all the presenters that are still here. Thank you.